Right, welcome back to Tell Family. Today we are with.
Brendon Alexander.
Okay, so let's start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Brendon Alexander. I am a self-proclaimed image architect, creative director, fashion stylist, and I do celebrity and editorial wardrobe styling.
Where are you from, and talk about the fashion scene there?
I am from Brooklyn, so I'm originally from New York. I grew up in Flatbush, and then New York, just as it was really accessible to be a part of fashion growing up in New York. So I was able to witness and see different things emerge within the fashion scene, and that's basically what inspired me. Really, is being able to at 15 jump on the train and go to Soho and see people of different walks of life, and how they dress and how they looked. And then being a part of pre-Parsons when I was in high school, and then going to FIT. So I've always had a good access to fashion growing up in New York.
Yeah, so when you were younger, like really, really young as a kid, would you describe yourself as fashionable?
No, my mom and my grandma were really fashionable. So I come from a huge family. My great grandmother had 14 kids, 12 of them girls. So I always grew up around fashionable women, and I saw them and their different aesthetics is what inspired kind of okay, you should have personal style.
And about what age did you begin to start to develop your own fashion sense?
I would say I think my first moment was maybe sixth grade, and I remember it was after Christmas break, and my mom had bought me this sweater, and I had these Jordan 2s, and that's when it was Kanye was out, and he was wearing the backpack or
Mhm.
whatever, and I wore my little button down with my blue sweater and my blue and white 2s, and I had my Louis Vuitton backpack. It was a moment for me. That was the time that I was realizing everybody when I walked into class, and I walked in late, kind of on purpose, but kind of on purpose to get everybody's reaction. There was oh, and I never wanted that to go away. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So do you feel like you always had that support for your fashion taste, or there were times where people wasn't feeling it at some point?
Oh, an era that I wish I could take back, and my mom was a supporter of, was my little color shotas era. Remember when skinny jeans came out and everybody wanted
Yeah.
to, yeah, everybody was dressing like they were you're a jerk, you're a jerk. That shit was I wish I could take that back. I'm so glad my MySpace is deleted.
I think that fashion, in a sense, is very broad. There's a lot of different types of fashion. Specifically, what does fashion mean to you, and what makes a good look?
Fashion is something it's more than just the clothing. It's about how you feel. It's an art form. It is a defining factor for people. It tells a story, it time, it tells culture. You can really analyze somebody based on what they're wearing, or you can tell a story with what you're wearing.
And what story do you think you're telling when you put together your looks?
When I put together my looks, it's usually based off a client, but when I'm styling editorials, depending on what I'm inspired by, that's what I execute or whatever's in front of me. I always say I'm a creator, so if I have something in front of me, I'll know how to use it.
All right, so talk about your start. How long have you been doing it, and how did you begin your journey?
So I went to fashion school and I was studying design. And freshman year, I started interning at W Magazine. I was an intern in the fashion closet, and then I later on moved into being an intern underneath Edward Enninfold's assistant. And it was just amazing to watch him. He was the reason why I was oh, I don't have to be a designer, I can be a stylist.
So it's really good that you had intern experience. Those are workplaces where you specifically are trying to take everything in. So can you speak about a learning experience that you went through around that time?
Um, around that time was, and to like even expand on what we were like talking about, because I don't feel like I answered the question fully.
Hmm.
But like to expand on that, that was just the first of like multiple intern experiences. I was like at Alexander Wang, I was at interview, I interned for other stylists. So like there being in that and like learning and seeing from that standpoint, and then I ended up working at like PR consultants, and I was a freelancer at Perrins and Schuler, and that was like the beginning of my like fashion like knowledge and career. But like I worked for 4 years for free, and that's why most people don't get to like literally I worked my ass off because I wanted to be a part of it, and I didn't like get a job until like 4 years into being a wardrobe stylist. And then I realized that like to be a stylist, like you have to have a book and you have to have clients and you have to like be known, and like it's not like okay, you can just wake up one day and be like, I want to be a wardrobe stylist. You have to have the experience. You have to know how to pull. You know, have to do market work. Like it's a method to the madness.
Hmm. And do you remember when you first got that big opportunity, like how you felt, when that opportunity came around?
Yeah, it was like nerve wracking. My first paid job and my first celebrity client, I did the this video called Night Job with J. Cole and Boss, and that was like really big for me. And I had already been doing like editorial styling. I was like nervous, but I super succeeded what I was supposed to do because it was my first time doing it, and I'm just that type of person, like I'm gonna over extend myself for something that I want to get done.
And so you mentioned it a little bit, in terms of putting together a look can, look like a bunch of different things depending on your particular client. Can you speak more about your work process and, when you receive an opportunity, how do you go about that?
So when I receive an opportunity, I always have like a client checklist or a checklist for everything. What's the vibe? What are we giving? What does it look like? How do we do what is best to execute the idea, and how can we evolve it and not do it differently from everybody else?
Do you think that, you are still able to incorporate your own personal style with every client, or there's sometimes where you don't have that much free will?
No, it's a lot of things. Like if you give me something, it's I've like established this thing apparently. It's called the Brendon effect. Like if you put something in front of me, like I said, I'm a creator. So like
Hmm.
if you put something in front of me and you tell me, okay, this is what we're supposed to do, it's still going to have some touch of me. And I think that's why people deem me as good at my job, because like I have a signature.
And that signature obviously gets you a lot of places. I see that you've worked for or did collabs with Paper Magazine and you did collabs with Bazaar. So can you speak more about um, those bigger magazines and how how that process works? Like, is there any difference between doing smaller jobs?
Doing smaller jobs is like it's just editorial in a sense in itself. It's its own beast, and like magazines will approach you or you will approach your magazine. Like when I was first starting out, like obviously nobody's gonna like book an unknown stylist. It's like put together a deck, um create your concept, build your team, pitch it to the magazine, and let them uh decide yes or no. And then later on it just became like, okay, I have a signature where it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, Brendon needs to do this because this is like Brendon's look, you know.
Hmm. And those are some very, very big achievements. So I would like you to go on a little bit more about some of the other big achievements you have. Flex a little bit. You have a lot on your resume.
I do have a lot on my resume. What have I done? I've like what I accomplished is I've been on all of the four magazines that I wanted to be in as a kid, like Harper's Bazaar. I have six Harper's covers. I have a L cover. I've been in Vogue. I've been no, I've been in three Vogues, and then what's the other big magazine that I'm forgetting about? Like to be deemed like that is like a biggest achievement
Hmm.
for a stylist is to have like a Vogue cover, you know.
Yeah,
It
for
like kind
sure.
of solidifies you. I'm still waiting on her, but you know, I'm gonna get it. I've been to Vogue like 5 times, but
Hmm.
you know, but I have, yeah, that's like some big flexes. I did Dancing with the Stars with Tyra Banks, so that was
Dope.
like a good run, and that taught me so much about costuming and live TV and how production works. Like huge project, one of the hugest projects I've ever been on, and yeah, this. I don't know what other flexes. I could go on for a little bit longer, but I'm not.
Hey, you had a lot, you know, you have a
Uh-huh.
lot and very, very impressive, especially as somebody who I'm not inside the industry, obviously, but I know those are very, very big names. You know,
Mm.
everybody knows they're big names. So it's very, very impressive. Any current projects that you're working on that you can say?
So right now I am curating a charity runway show featuring emerging Black designers. So I'm doing that during New York Fashion Week. Big project, lots of stress, and this is also my first time doing something like that. I've done runway before. Like this was actually inspired by going back to flexing. Um, I did at Arab Fashion Week in Dubai, so I styled a runway show in Dubai, and then seeing that method inspired me to like, oh, let me do something. To one, I always wanted to be able to like give back with my art, and then also I do like nurturing up and coming talent. I want to start an incubator one day later on in my career, but I feel like I'm getting into the flow of it now.
And you kind of spoke about a little bit with some projects that you also want to do in the future, but what are some of your goals, whether short term or long term, throughout your career?
Long term, I mean, I just want to be a brand. I want to be like a household name. I do want to be like commercially successful, but I want to be successful in art as well. And I want to be like deemed as an artist, one of the greats, you know? And like I am going towards that. And yeah.
And so, being that you put together looks, and obviously you weren't always at the place where you are now, was there a time where you had to source clothing and less expensive routes compared to now, where I'm sure
Oh
you're,
my gosh. And
you
it's
know,
I'm not that type of person either. Like I love a high low combo. Like that is
hmm
something that is like inspiring to me in itself because I like people to like look expensive, but it doesn't have to be expensive. Like I'm creative and like I can take a tarp and like make it look like a couture gown. So like I've had like in one of the times like I was in Vogue Italia, like one of my favorite stylists, Patty Wilson, has this thing called Patty's Eye, and she like grouped together a whole bunch of things and she used the image. I had this Missy Elliott costume, but I made it out of like a trash bag, right?
hmm
And I I just had it in my bag randomly, and I used it and I sculpted it together like art. And she used the photo of a Bogotaya. She put it in Bogotaya.
That's crazy.
Hmm.
That's crazy. And I'm sure, being able to work for so many celebrities nowadays is such a blessing because again, you went through 4 years of just non-paid learning, and obviously, I'm sure you still are learning by the day.
Hmm.
So I can only imagine what it must feel like to be at your spot now, where you can present your art to a lot of big household names.
Hmm. I would like it's I'm in the process of branding. I do feel like I'm at the beginning of the middle of my career. You know,
Hmm.
um, I have this theory I was talking about in the car last night, where you ever watch Devil Wears Prada?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've
Okay, so
watched it
there's like
before.
four main characters in Devil Wears Prada. It's Andy Sachs. She just wants to be like a writer, and she starts off and doesn't know shit about fashion. And then Emily is the first assistant that is her like overseer, and then you have like the fashion director, and then the person who The Devil Wears Prada is about, Miranda Priestley. But there's stages in your career as a stylist. You start off as Andy, you become Emily, then you're Nigel, and then you end up Miranda Priestley. And I feel like I'm at my Nigel stage and like going towards being Miranda Priestley. Like anybody that watches this will get that analogy.
Well, we know we were supporting you on that grind, and obviously, I think that you're gonna get there. You're in a very, very good space right now.
Thank you.
Any advice for people that are starting off? I think that your industry might be a little bit different from others, where the path may look a little bit more straightforward. How do you begin to get into fashion?
Like I said, I interned, I worked for free. I hit the people up and I made sure there's lots of like great websites. When I was like looking for internships, I used to use this thing called ED. I forgot what the fuck it was called, but like Google and like see who is the person at the highest realm and what you want to do and look for opportunities to get in those rooms. This is what I can say.
That's really, really inspirational. I think that similar to what you said previously in the interview, I think people shouldn't look down on intern work, especially depending on the industry.
Mhm.
I think that it's more important to make sure that you're learning, and as long as you're learning and soaking in all that information, that's all valuable, experience that's going to be put towards your career in the future.
Hmm. And it's like something that I tell people all the time. If you really want something, you put the energy in to it, it'll it'll come to fruition, you know?
Hmm.
You have to invest the time. It's like depositing in your own self and your wealth.
Thank you. Any last things that you would like to say before we close out?
Keep it real. Believe content creation isn't everything. You can be an artist and like not be a content creator because you have to not worry about what other people are thinking. Stay true to your art.
Last thing, tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Brendon Alexander, B as in boy, R as in rabbit, E as in excellent.
There we go. All right. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Okay, welcome back to Toe Family. We're here with another one. I am very, very happy to be able to be speaking with.
Grenada Mills.
Okay, thank you for reaching out to us. I really do appreciate it. Guys, remember you can always reach out to us. We don't always have to reach out to you guys. If you really feel like you have a talent that you want us to display, just reach out to us either on our Instagram page or comment on our YouTube page, and we'll make sure to get back to you. All right, so let's start by, talking a little bit about your journey. So, first, what type of art do you create, and how did you get into that?
Okay, so I'm a musician, so I'm a singer, songwriter, instrumentalist. So I play the piano and violin. Um, with music, it's always been something in my life. My mom put me in music classes when I was really young. I was like 5 when I started piano, and I was 9 when I started violin. So music has been like always in my life. Like I always like to hear music that was feeding your soul, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because that's what I was used to. And also like with piano and violin, like I had to sit there and I had to focus on the song. So it was always something that had like a lot of meaning. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the music I was used to. And so with the way I make music, I realized that when I first started out, it was more of in this moment I feel this way, I'm gonna spit this, and then that was that. It was just a moment. This is how I feel in a moment. Now it's more of as I get more like conscious and I
Mm-hmm.
get like, more aware of myself as a person and, of this earth, I start to realize that my music is meant to really like feed the soul. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I was raised in the way I was raised, but like in a different way, not really the traditional Christian way at all, or like the
Mm-hmm.
traditional gospel way at all, more in a just spiritual, like
Yeah.